And joining us now on the JT Show, the Honorable George Carlson, former Mississippi Supreme Court Justice. Good afternoon, I should say, Justice Carlson. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Gerard, and as Dave Ramsey would say, probably better than I deserve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Wanted to get you on the program and talk about this upcoming Supreme Court Justice confirmation, the hearings and so forth for the president's selection, Amy Coney Barrett. Coney Barrett. I'm reading from something that's got a typo in it, so I apologize for that. But anyhow,
you think about Jim Comey, so I'm sure
that's exactly right. The news on him today, this morning, that I was just reading. You're absolutely right, sir. But so this is setting up possibly to be, you think, another rather contentious affair that's probably more rife with personal attacks than it is what the advice and consent function of the Senate. Your thoughts about that?
I would agree to a certain extent, Gerard. I think the Democrats don't want another Brett Kavanaugh hearing. They have admitted such. They don't want to go down that road. They saw it didn't work. And you're exactly right, Gerard. They're not concerned about advice and consent in doing their job. They admit the reason we're not going down the road we did with Justice Kavanaugh is because after that we lost some Democratic senators who were not reelected. So it is all about politics, even though they won't admit that. In fact, they deny it. But I don't think it would be as contentious, but definitely they're going to come after Judge Barrett without any question. They're going to go after on the Affordable Care Act and what her positions have been on that, probably also the abortion rights, gay rights, affirmative action, Second Amendment stance she takes. She's certainly pro-Second Amendment, maybe even climate change. So those are some of the things they're going to go after with Judge Barrett.
Yeah, and you know, on the surface at least, Judge, when you read her bio, her background, she's a very intelligent person. She's obviously, it seems to me, to be very qualified for this position, and she's kind of a normal person to a great extent. I mean, she's a wife, she's a mother, she's a professor at a leading university's law school. And she's kind of immersed herself in the law while also performing her duties, or no, I shouldn't say duties, but her function as a wife and a mother. Good grief, I don't want to get anybody to get the impression that there's a duty there, but certainly as a parent, you have a duty to take care of your children and your household, whether you're the father or the mother. It doesn't really matter. But it just seems like that to the left, that's objectionable. And she's a very religious person, and she's no question. She's a devout Christian Catholic, and she doesn't try to hide that. It's almost like that in itself, that profile has become objectionable to our Democrat friends.
Exactly, Gerard. In fact, back in 2017, when Judge Barrett appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee to be confirmed as, I believe, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals judge out of Chicago, and Senator Feinstein questioned her at length about her being a Catholic, and would that interfere with her ability to make decisions based on the law and the evidence? And Judge Barrett said it would not, and clearly she has shown that has no bearing on her decision making. But a wife, a mother, I don't know how she does it all. Mother of son,
I agree.
Two adopted children, a special needs child, and yet, by all accounts, a very capable and hardworking judge, a circuit judge with a great work ethic.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of bothersome. I mean, it's also fair to say, isn't it, Judge, that the Senate, they should certainly gauge and evaluate a candidate, a nominee's temperament. I think it's clear and you, sir, having performed in that function, one needs to have a stable temperament about them and a demeanor that is appropriate for a justice. But it doesn't seem like that even gets talked about a lot when they get into these hearings. It's all about something that happened, just thinking about Kavanaugh 25 years ago, or in this case, with respect to Judge Barrett, it'll be about her Catholic and Christian faith. And I think it's valid to ask a justice, will that interfere with your application of the law? Those are valid questions. But when it gets to the point where, well, you're just not qualified because you're a Christian Catholic, I think that goes outside of the qualification tests.
And I don't think that will play well with for the Democrats. And I agree that by all accounts, Judge Barrett has a great judicial temperament. That means a lot. I've had litigants to come into court when I was a trial judge, a circuit judge, before I went to the Supreme Court. And they would talk about judicial temperament, and they can handle a whole lot, even losing the case, if they feel like they're treated fairly and with respect. And I think that means a lot. And Judge Barrett will bring that to the confirmation hearings. I believe they're going to have a hard time getting her rattled or upset or off key. And I think she will do very well in the confirmation hearing.
And so 6 Democrats, I think that, and I'm not sure if all of them are on the Judiciary Committee, have already suggested they will not conduct private sessions and private meetings, which is a fairly standard protocol with Judge Barrett. And basically saying the whole process is illegitimate is the way they put it, and the president shouldn't even think about this nomination because the American people don't want it, want to see the next president elected and wait for that. That seems a little odd. I know our Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, as is discussed on our News Mississippi, is scheduled to meet with Judge Barrett later on today, 5 o'clock, I believe. But is that a little unusual, Judge, that so many of these Democrats, key Democrats, are not even willing to sit down and have a conversation with her? They're always the people saying we need more conversations.
It is very unusual, and I'm surprised they don't take that as the opportunity to have a one-on-one with Judge Barrett.
Sure.
And Senator Schumer has led the way in saying I will not meet with her, and talking about, as you say, Gerard, about it being an illegitimate process. Now, they want to talk about the fact that 4 years ago, when President Obama nominated Judge Garland, that the Republicans protested, and now the Republicans think it's okay now. But what the Democrats don't mention is that despite the protest that as far as President Obama nominating someone in an election year, he went ahead and nominated someone, just like President Trump has. There's nothing out of the ordinary there.
Yeah, and so
in fact, I think President Trump would be derelict in his duty if he didn't go ahead and nominate someone in this position.
And the president has said that, but nominations such as this, they should not be influenced by public sentiment. That's not the way a president should discharge his constitutional duties, or the Senate for that matter. It shouldn't be influenced by public sentiment, should it, Judge?
No, absolutely not. And they need to go ahead and go through the process. And I think what the Democrats did back in 2013 is going to come back and bite them, and that is in the Senate led by then Majority Leader Harry Reid, as you know, implemented the nuclear option. I hear the music. Yep. I know we're coming up on a break.
Yeah. Can you stay with us through the break?
Sure, absolutely.
The Honorable George Carlson is our guest. Stay with us here on SuperTalk Mississippi. We'll be back for more discussion about confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. On the line with us is the Honorable George Carlson, a former Mississippi Supreme Court justice. We were just talking about the upcoming hearings and subsequent confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, the president's nominee to replace Justice Ginsburg, who recently passed away. So, Judge, handicap it for you. You think this thing's going to go through? It looks like, according to Lindsey Graham and Leader McConnell, the votes are there.
I think the Democrats pretty well concede that they're going to try to just make some points they can. Maybe they think might help them come election time, but I think it's going to go through without any question.
Yeah, and there's some speculation.
Go through the process and try to bring out what they can. The Democrats will, as far as any negative aspects of Judge Barrett, but I don't think that's going to apply.
You got to think, though, if they start attacking her personally, and frankly, there should be no distinction between a male candidate and a female nominee, in my view. But I think it's just kind of natural that from the emotional makeup of humans, it's just frowned upon more so when a female is attacked. And so I would say that they would do that at their own peril. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And especially the female members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And if they choose to go down that road, then I think that will be to their detriment. One thing very quickly, Gerard, I know we've mentioning that before the break, the nuclear option is something that the Democrats came up with under Harry Reid,
right?
Because the Democrats wanted to get some federal judicial appointments through, and so they passed the nuclear option, but it included all federal judge appointments except the Supreme Court. Well, come 2017, when they had the confirmation here on Judge Gorsuch, they then Majority Leader and now Majority Leader McConnell said, "Hey, you did it back in 2013. We're going to do it for the Supreme Court for Judge Gorsuch." They've done
sure
it
did.
with him and with Judge Kavanaugh. Judge Kavanaugh, thanks to the nuclear rule option, 50 to 48 votes to confirm, whereas under the old rule it would have taken 60.
Right. Yes. Thanks for clarifying that. It's a good point. And Harry Reid did it and frankly kind of smirked and laughed about it. That's when the old elections have consequences deal kind of originated from him and Barack Obama as well. So we'll see where that goes. Now, Senator Mazie Hirono from Hawaii, she was interviewed a couple of days ago. Her thoughts about Senator Barrett, and she referred to her concerns about Senator Barrett's, quote, closely held views, unquote, which I felt like was kind of a euphemism for Christianity, which really, I mean, why would a senator be concerned about a judicial nominee's closely held views? And that may not be what she was referring to. It just kind of sounded like that, in my opinion. What would be appropriate for a senator, Justice, in terms of concerns about a nominee?
That her term, and I did not see or read about that interview, but that is code for Catholic or Christianity.
Yeah,
exactly
that's what I thought.
That is. And so, unfortunately, there's so many now that see religion, Christianity, as a negative, and it just drives them crazy. And that's what I think is going on here. That when you get to the point of being mad, and that's what kind of off the point. President Trump is a master at getting the Democrats mad and upset, because we all know, as human beings, when you're mad, you do things that are irrational.
That's true.
You see Democrats doing it day in and day out because of their hatred for President Trump.
And just mainstream traditional American life, it appears, and she is kind of the poster child for that. And you know, it also occurs to me, and get your response to this, that to some extent Democrats may be upset because here's a very accomplished female that's not a Democrat. And it's almost like they feel like they own certain demographics and ilks. females being one of them. Your thoughts about that?
They own minorities in their view, including females. And well, we know what Senator Biden, Vice President Biden, said when he talked to a black journalist, and I won't go through what he said, but you know what he said.
Yes.
And that was offensive to that journalist.
Very arrogant assumption that was made there, and that kind of feels like what's happening here. So I got to ask you now, we saw the debate last night, and VP Biden says, well, if on the topic of confirmation of Judge Barrett, if she is confirmed, you're going to lose your health care, and Roe v. Wade is at risk. And as you said in the last segment, Judge, about gay rights and female rights and so forth, women's rights, to what extent should a justice in the Supreme Court in general take stock of legacy and precedent on things like that? Roe v. Wade's, 1973, for example, because that gets discussed a lot in these hearings. How should they rule on matters like that, Judge, in your opinion?
Precedent is a very important part of our jurisprudence. And if you didn't follow precedent, now then our our judicial system would be in chaos, because if you just willy-nilly make a decision just because of who the judge is or who the parties are, then there would be chaos. Now, every so often, and I saw that happen when I was on the state Supreme Court, we would decide a case that maybe was 40 years old, simply was bad law, and we would overturn that case, but that has to be very rare. And so even I think Chief Justice Roberts, when he was confirmed, and he talked about that precedent was important, as far as I know, and they've had a chance to overturn Roe v. Wade, and it's not happened.
Right.
So I think Judge Barrett will follow precedent. Now, somewhere along the way, the majority of the court may decide that Roe v. Wade is bad law, but who knows? That could be on that case or any other case.
Well, but each of those cases, I guess, should stand on its own merits, and to some extent, it's fair to say, and I'm sort of repeating my understanding of what you're saying there, Judge, is that precedent should be considered. That doesn't mean, as you said, it's bad law and it doesn't need to be overturned and you rule in a certain direction. But in general, there's got to be some consideration to precedent. It doesn't matter if it's Roe v. Wade or what it is. That's just kind of the makeup, as you indicate, of our jurisprudence. I seem to recall that Justice Kavanaugh, Senator Collins was the pivotal vote there, and her speech, frankly, was incredible when she announced in the chamber there in the well, advising the president he would support his nomination and confirm Kavanaugh. She actually referenced her comfort level with his adherence and his consideration, I should say, of precedent when she went back and read a lot of his opinions, that in fact he was a person that properly applied that in his rulings. So this could be a big deal.
Right, absolutely. And I think when they go and look at Judge Barrett's opinions and her decisions, they're going to see that she has followed precedent. Now, when she's gotten out, you mentioned about her being a very popular and very good law professor at Notre Dame, and she was very outspoken. She, I think, protested the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, as it went to forcing employers to have insurance coverage that provided for coverage for abortion.
Right.
And she protested that. Now, so certainly on her own, she's protested, but as far as her opinions, I think she has followed precedent.
And so it's incumbent upon then the senators, I guess, to try to make that distinction between perhaps personal views that have been stated and recorded and how they would act as a justice. That's really the essence, is it not, sir, of the confirmation process?
It is. Absolutely.
How impartial can they be is the key. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. One thing, and very quickly, Gerard, what I'm concerned because Democrats say if Judge Barrett goes on the court, if she's confirmed, and if the Democrats take the White House, they are going to start court packing.
Yeah.
In other words, they're going to start increasing the number of justices on the Supreme Court, and that will lead certainly to total chaos.
Terrible, terrible. Justice George Carlson, thanks so much for joining us today, sir. Enjoyed having you. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you, Gerard.